Moses, welcome.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So so my name is Moses. I've started my business 7 years ago when I moved to Canada. So back in Singapore, I was actually a pharmaceutical sales rep, but when I moved to Canada 7 years ago, what happened was I couldn't find a job. And that was when I decided to dive into digital marketing. And from there in itself, that's where things started getting crazy in terms of like, what does it mean to run a business? And I guess that's why we met each other and now we're already having this conversation. So through this whole journey of starting my business, it's been lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of good, lots of bad. So there's lots of learning experience through this whole process, and yeah, I'm ready to share this with anybody who's listening.
Yeah, lots of ups and lots of downs for sure, in any type of business. Um, so just out of curiosity, you were in pharmaceutical sales, and then how did you get into digital marketing? Like, how did you make that transition?
And okay, great question. So, uh, when I first started out, right, like I graduated with a degree in chemistry. So it's very different from where I am today. But when I first graduated in degree in chemistry, I hated being in the lab for pretty much 7 days a week. So what I did was like, okay, what can I do with my degree that is closely related to what I learned, but ultimately not totally relevant. So that's where I started diving into, oh, there's this function called sales, and I started looking more into like pharmaceutical company, petroleum company in terms of like what would a salesperson actually do. And after applying to a few of them, that's where I first started my career in pharmaceutical sales, just because of my degree in chemistry which was actually a needed requirement to do pharmaceutical sales. Kind of interesting. And then that was when that was when I was in Singapore. But fast forward moving to Canada, what happened was when I came to Canada after leaving pharmaceutical sales in Singapore, I thought I could do the same thing here. It was really a very competitive industry to get in, and I was like, man, I don't think I probably sent out more than 200 to 300 resumes to like different companies, and I did not even get a single interview. So I was just like pretty bummed out about it. And then at the point of time, how I got into digital marketing, I was kind of it was kind of more of a mindset shift for me. Why I started digital marketing. Firstly, because a lot of my family was actually still back. All my family is actually back in Singapore, but only my wife and my kids are here in Canada. So a big part of me was thinking, if I can actually live a perfect life of being in both country at any given point of time that I want to be, what would that look like? So that kind of made me think in terms of like what should I pursue to then have the time freedom and also the financial freedom. And so how does that tie to the job that I was going to go into, or the career that I was going to? So went and do lots of research in online and stuff like that. Hey, like digital marketing seems like something that I can do anywhere, and it seems like a very big growing industry. So that's where I started taking online courses, and that's kind of really how I got started in this whole digital marketing space. Uh, Getting my first trial client to getting my first paid client, all the way up to 7 years later now running a business in it. So that's kind of how it transitioned over into where I am today.
Yeah, I like it that most of the time we make our decisions when things don't work out. Oh, first you didn't give up. You looked for a different way, and then uh, kind of imagining what your perfect life would be by saying, "Oh, I want to be able to be in both worlds, on the other side of the world versus being here and not have it affect your work." So I think that's kind of cool how you went this way. Uh, so can you explain what is digital marketing? Because it's like a generalized term, and marketing for me is still pretty new. So what is digital marketing?
So, I mean, in a very simple way, right? Digital marketing is how you advertise online, and in an ever evolving world with social media being at the forefront of it, right? Like you have to have a digital presence in this globalized world, right? And a lot of times in the past where we have, I mean, television, we have newspaper, I mean, advertising or marketing just seems to be on print, on like
Mhm.
paper and stuff like that. But as people evolve, as technology evolve in itself, having the need to advertise on platform where people are on just gives us more of a digitalized footprint and allowing us to be able to reach out to the masses. So kind of that's what I would just say, like digital marketing in a nutshell, a very simple way of thinking. But then when we start going into the details of it, I think when people start thinking of, like, let me ask you this, when I ask you, when you think of digital marketing, what do you think of? What's the one thing that comes to your mind?
Like dancing on TikTok.
Dancing on TikTok, right? Or people say that, I mean, dancing on TikTok, Facebook ads. So
Yeah.
people think in terms of the platform in itself. But
Mm.
what I like to bring people to is really the understanding of how they should be implementing marketing rather than just focusing on the vehicle. Because what you just said, like for example, dancing on TikTok, you're recognizing a platform with
Mhm.
digital marketing. But
Right.
digital marketing actually has a whole basis in terms of how you should be setting up, right? And why do I say that, right? Because if for example you say dancing on TikTok, you'll probably find the latest trend, the latest dance, the latest song, and then you're probably
Yeah.
trying to figure out like what does that mean. So you're diving straight into the platform without having an understanding of how does this actually ties in to a bigger picture of your business in itself.
Yeah.
So it becomes more from a very pigeonhole mindset in terms of like this is what I should do instead of like really thinking of the bigger scope of digital marketing. And I can tell you that this is a very common thing for a lot of business owners out there, investors out there, because, for example, I one of the biggest thing that when I ask people about this as well, they say Facebook ads, right? People think about Facebook
Yeah.
ads as digital marketing. So what naturally happens is that they think that Facebook ads is digital marketing, and kind of when they start doing Facebook ads, they kind of expect an immediate result, and it becomes very stuck to the point of them just focusing on that one vehicle in itself as compared to really thinking about a full idea of what digital marketing encompasses. So for example, right, what I like to talk to people about is not just necessarily on Facebook ads, but why do you even begin Facebook ads, or why do you begin dancing on TikTok? Why are you trying to get attention? What's your marketing objective? Are you trying to get attention, or are you trying to get customers? Because getting attention and getting customers are two different things, and people don't really understand that to begin with. And there's really
Mhm.
a journey to bring people through. Even if you get, let's say, doing a dance on TikTok, you get attention from people in itself. But how do you actually get them into your ecosystem, or giving their contact information so that you can continuously nurture them? Or what does that even look like in terms of your marketing funnel, right? Like how are you bringing them through your ideal customer journey? So there's really a lot more to really think about apart from just that one facet of what you just
Mhm.
identified.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good point because I've heard, and I didn't realize this until I think I forget who said it, but you can have a large audience and not make any money off of it. But you can also have a small audience but make a lot of money off of it. So it's like, how do you efficiently, how do you run this business efficiently? That's I guess that's the struggle that I've been dealing with because I've always kind of viewed social. I mean, there's at one point where I stopped using social media and I deactivated my Facebook account, but then come to realize that social media isn't about dancing, like recording yourself dancing and pointing at like things on the screen. It's about creating a bigger audience and then pretty much saying I'm open for business. Like it's a marketing tool. And so that's something that I've been struggling with. How to grow an audience, right? So like this to me is supposed to like grow an audience so at some point we can work together and make money together. But I feel like I'm just kind of shooting stuff off and then hoping for results, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So for someone who's just getting started out, like what is the best way to get to begin?
So I think to begin, right, like I mean, so before any form of, I mean, like before doing anything, right, like having a very clear end goal in mind is important, because that's kind of becoming a north star in terms of like what is true versus what's not true. So a lot of time when people start with marketing in itself, or start doing anything online, right, I feel that they're just doing in, yes, they have that clear end goal in mind, but whatever they are doing doesn't really, they're not really measuring in terms of like whether is it going towards my angle or not going towards my angle, kind of like they're just doing it, like you say, just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something
Mhm.
sticks. Or
Yeah.
they're not really measuring in terms of like, so once you have the end goal in itself, you kind of really need to identify the micro goals as well in terms of what needs to be true so that you are in the right direction of hitting an end goal.
Mhm.
For example, right, like if I use Facebook ads as an example, because I think this is something that a lot of people are always very fearful to do. But at the end of the day, it's just I would just say it's more about how you go about thinking about things rather than doing it. So for example, if my goal is to get more customers from Facebook ads, right? So ultimately, if I were to run an ad, I would hopefully get leads, and those leads would turn into appointment, and those appointment would effectively close and become a customer. That's a very simple sales journey in itself to really understand in terms of like what a customer journey looks like for any businesses out there. And ultimately, if I put money into Facebook, the very first thing that needs to be true is I'm getting leads, right? So what's the cost of my leads? What's the quality of my leads? And ultimately, how do I know that these leads are actually booking an appointment? So I need to be able to understand the number of leads, the quality of the leads, and ultimately how many of those are actually turning into appointment. Because a lot of time when people start running Facebook ads, they think that all leads would become sales,
Mhm.
and that is pretty much a very like this is a very common thought process that as long as I put money in Facebook, I should see some sales. But in a sense that a lead and a sale requires a process. And through that process is the things that you do. For example, when a lead comes in, how fast are you calling the lead? How often are you calling the lead? How many emails are you sending? What's the open rate? So these are things that actually need to be measured in in specific because that would kind of inform your decision in terms of whether this is going towards your North Star or not going against your North Star. For example, if a lead comes in and 10 of these leads, for example, let's talk about real estate, right? Like
Mhm.
people are wanting to start investing in like people want to start getting investor to invest in their fund so that uh they can they can build say like their next multi-family complex or whatsoever, right? But the
Mhm.
thing is in the front end, if you're attracting leads that do not even have the money in the first place, so your offer is bad and ultimately
Mhm.
your targeting is bad. So there's things that needs to change for you to even have somebody that drives straight into I mean to be able to actually invest in your fund. So kind of your offer need to change, your targeting need to change, so you need to go back to the ad and see what it looks like. And let's say now if you change an ad and you know that out of 100 leads that opt in, 80 people are qualified to even have the funds to invest in your project in the first place, right? Are they then taking the next step in terms of booking an appointment? If they are not, why? What is the process that is missing, or where's the gap in your business that is actually not allowing people to actually book a call with you to talk to you to invest in your to understand more about your fund or once they book an appointment is are your salespeople bad in terms of like not being able to communicate the idea in terms of why somebody should be investing in the fund like so do the salespeople need to be trained so there's a lot of these micro metrics that actually need to be focused on which what I call like you really have to be thinking about your ideal customer journey and knowing in terms of like how each and every step along the way what you're measuring so that you're able to turn the lead and ultimately get a sale and what does that look like? Because by being able to measure what takes place at each perspective step along the way, right? It gives you more of a confidence in terms of what is right versus what is not, what is great, what is doing well and what is not doing well. And when it's not doing well, it's not because that the ad isn't oh, it's not because Facebook isn't working. Facebook is working for a lot of people. It's just more about
Mhm.
the perspective of like if Facebook is working, why is it working? Facebook is not working, why is it not working? And what do I need to change to get it to work? Right. So it's just more about really testing stuff in a very measurable approach and to get started is really to identify more from what does your ideal customer journey looks like and then from there in itself then start once you know what to measure and how you what needs to be measured to be true to go into your north star then it will allow you to effectively like put more money into Facebook and get a predictable outcome at the end of the day.
Got it. Yeah. That was something that I think I ran into was, well, first of all, I didn't even have an offer, and then my targeting was way off. I was going too general. Um, and the problem is like there's so many different platforms, right? There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, then there's like Reddit, and I'm sure there's other stuff that I'm missing. So then when like a founder is trying to get into digital marketing because there's not necessarily a budget for it yet, do you suggest that they do nothing or do something on one platform, or do they just kind of blast it off into many different platforms? Like, what's your suggestion?
I'd say definitely one platform. I mean, like what you just mentioned, right? LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, so on and so forth. There's the many platform out there. Like, I mean, the very first thing is to identify which platform is most of your audience on. And I can
Mhm.
safely say, like, I mean, if you're trying to go more business related CEO stuff, go on LinkedIn. If you are trying to do more like general, I mean, like for example, real estate investment, I would say like Instagram and Facebook would be a very good platform in itself, right?
Mhm.
Because I think that that is kind of more. I mean, I would say that most of the general population in today's world is on Facebook and Instagram. So
Mhm.
to get started on those, you'll never go wrong in terms of
Yeah.
starting. And but I would say that why start with one platform? Just because of the fact that you are not you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, but at the same time, you're not. I mean, it's not that you don't not put you're putting your eggs in one basket. Correct, I'm correcting myself there. But I think that if you start going to many platforms, there's so many things that you need to think about from an optimization perspective. For example, how you advertise on LinkedIn versus how you advertise on Facebook and Instagram, those are all different forms of, like, there are subtleties of differences, right? You cannot just
Mhm.
put the same message, the same offer. Like probably the offer would work, but ultimately the messaging would not work because, like, while your audience are there, it's just that, like, people have very different perspective when going onto different social media platforms in itself. So that's kind of like why I
Mhm.
would say start on one platform, focus your energy on one, just because you can really understand what to track, how to track, and then you know how to optimize that platform, get it working, and then jump to the next. Because if it is not working on one, right, and then you're trying to optimize five different platforms at one single point of time, you're going to burn money really, really quickly, or burn your
Mhm.
time and energy really, really quickly, and then it
Yeah.
doesn't help to scale your business. And not just that, right? Because the platforms are just getting attention and getting leads. And to me, that those are very important things that you are going to get. But ultimately, like I said, attention and leads doesn't equal sales. So there's going to be your whole entire sales process that you really need to be optimizing that will generate a sale for you at the end of the day. And if you're going to multiple platforms and spending all this time, energy, and money onto all the other platform itself without optimizing first your sales process, you you might not even get success from one platform because your entire sales process is just in a mixed mash of things. And to me, that's one thing that I feel that people just don't focus on enough on, because they
Mhm.
focus more on just generating more leads than really understand how do I turn this lead and how do I nurture this lead into a sale and what does that look like internally. Because I can tell you that when I work with most businesses out there, the very first thing that I do is really tighten up their sales process to know what is happening internally. Because if you don't have that done, you can spend 1,000, 2,000, $1 million, and, like, yes, can you get customers? Yes, but because your sales process is so inefficient, you're not maximizing every dollar or energy or time that you're spending on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is speaking to me so well because just speaking to me because uh, I spend all this time trying to find more leads and more external parties to come in that I lose focus on the internal and nurturing the customers and the people that I already have or the opportunities that I already have. Um, so all part of all part of the learning process of starting a business, right?
Yeah, it
Um,
is. It is.
so for me, I had mentioned earlier that I was kind of going off and trying to and not really focusing on one type of avatar, right? So in this case, I have figured out that uh, my goal is to help people who are in a W-2, busy working professionals, because I used to be in consulting. I used to have a demanding W-2. Plus, at the same when I first started real estate, I had like an infant and a 2.5-year-old. So time was very limited. And so my goal is to help people that have very limited amounts of time, but have money that want to invest or want to put to work to deploy and get it moving. So in order to find my audience, like how do you even determine where they're at and then whether your marketing efforts are working to reach those individuals?
Good question. So organically, you just have to put out content. Let's talk about both organic and paid. I think
Mhm.
there's two very different ideas that you can really take off from. So for example, from an organic perspective, right? First thing first is I would see who in your industry is really making waves, making noise, and have a very big audience and what they are putting out there. Because it's not hard to copy a video that they have already been they produce and have gone viral, and you just do the same first, the, keep the same hook, the storyline can change to something that is more relevant to you, and you
Mhm.
try to use the same video. And I think that would be a starting point in terms of producing more organic content to reach out to your ideal audience, because people who are watching their content in itself would necessarily gravitate towards what you're going to put out if it is similar. So kind of finding
Mhm.
that similarity would be very important in terms of like doing your content research and understanding what that's going to look like. Other thing is just start interacting with people. I mean, like start interacting with this profile as well. Like comment on their videos, make like give your thought leadership. Like spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day just blasting your comments onto like their platform in itself, so that you are actually known. And I can tell you that this works because I've gotten lots of clients just by commenting on other people's posts. And the only reason why it works is because people who are hanging out there are your ideal clients. And when they see a content or a thought leadership post that is really related to them, they'll start checking out your profile and they see the content that you have. They might even reach out to you, right? So that's kind of from an organic perspective. And in terms of like something to give, when somebody land on your profile, you always have something, a freebie to give, right? So that you can capture the audience. So what is that one thing that you can actually give to them that they would find useful, so that they know that it would help them to jumpstart their journey? So that's kind of like a lead magnet type thing on your profile that has to be clearly communicated, so that they know that, hey, if I download this, this is the benefit I'm going to get. So that's something that on your profile that will get. So from an organic perspective, I think that's kind of like how I would advise people to jumpstart their profile in itself, more from a marketing perspective. Whereas in terms of paid, right? Like, so in terms of paid, I actually did this experiment last year where I took $1,000 of my own money, and I was just trying to prove to people that like you can actually get your kind of ideal clients and ultimately turn these leads into a sale just by running kind of like a lead magnet funnel. So what I did was I put together a lead magnet funnel with just a very simple Google Docs of like value add that I was what how I'll be teaching people to grow their business predictably and profitably using this strategy, right? So something that I found out during this whole test was the only thing that really matters into finding your ideal client is the title of the lead magnet. So it's kind of crazy, but for example, right, if you're trying to target uh real estate investor who wants to invest in a multi-unit portfolio, right?
Mhm.
Like what you would write is like, hey, like are you like a title, how to earn your next million with this multi-family project, right? Like
Mhm.
download to find out more. So like this could be, or the 7 steps or on what you should be doing to raise funds for your first 1 million multifamily unit. I mean, I'm just cracking stuff up here, but
Yeah.
ultimately that would filter out people who is interested in investing in multifamily, who are interested in getting a real estate investment, because not any Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to opt in for that. It's only people who relate to what the title is actually saying
Mhm.
is going to opt in for that. So that's kind of like the very first thing I would say would be very important if you're trying to go into in fact, it doesn't matter whether organic or paid, right? Like this is what you need to do when you put out a lead magnet. You need to be speaking to your ideal target audience, and when they download this, you kind of know what they're downloading, why they're downloading it. It's not just how to start real estate investing. I mean, that's very general, but now if I become very specific in terms of like how to start investing in your first multi-family real estate deal, right? Like you know your audience set are people who are looking for multi-family, and kind of like
Mhm.
now when you have a conversation, you know how to have the conversation with them, right? Because when you pick up the phone and start calling them, hey, like I saw you download this, where are you in your journey? I can find out more in terms of what you're at and how I can actually get you to invest. So that's kind of like where I was go. But in terms of from paid, right? Once you have the lead magnet in itself, I think that once you put money in, it's just when people start opting in, the goal is to actually contact the lead as fast as possible to know whether they are first qualified and they are of quality to you. Because if they're not, then you need to change the lead magnet title. And it is really as simple as that just from the get-go.
Mhm.
And you don't really have to complicate a whole sort of like what should my marketing strategy be? No, just put something out there, spend some money, pick up the phone, start talking to the leads that you acquired, and to understand where they're at in the journey, and is this something that you can even help them with. So it's just practicing your pitch and then slowly refining your process along the way, and see how many of these leads are actually qualified and how many of them can actually turn into a sale. So hopefully that has been helpful.
Mm. Yeah, that's super helpful because you hear people saying try something, then tweak, try something, then tweak. And it's just no matter what is it we do. So when I was doing like wholesaling for real estate, I don't know if you know what that, do you know
Yeah,
wholesale and real
I
estate?
know what
Yeah.
wholesaling is. Yeah.
It's always about disqualifying as many as fast as possible. And then I guess no matter what industry you're in, if you're in business, like it's always about disqualifying as quickly as possible so you can spend more time on those that want to work with you.
But it's not just disqualifying, right? But the thing is like, if yes, you are disqualifying people, but the thing is like, you also need to know how many people are qualified. Because if you are disqualifying 90% of your audience, it's just like there's something wrong with the marketing essentially
Yeah,
to understand. Like, but I mean, like, yes, it's
yeah,
very important to disqualify people, but it's also understanding your numbers in terms of like, what's your percentage or what's your ratio in that perspective of things.
yeah, yeah. So the keeping track of the KPIs, right?
Yes, correct.
Cool. So, um, I mean, again, with the digital marketing, I kind of started off with well, I guess this because I had trouble just looking to a camera and just talking into it. So I kind of use this conversation as a way to create content. Um, is this an effective way, or is it really like what Dan says, you have to go and look into the camera to convey a message? Is that the most effective way?
Very good question. I would say is one of the ways, and it shouldn't be your only way. So let me why I would say that is just because people who listen to podcasts would isn't necessarily people who are on so I mean like people who listen to podcasts are not necessarily the audience that will be watching your content on social media in itself. While there's going to be some overlap in itself, the way to capture attention now has to be more drastic and intentional in terms of creating, unless you really have an audience. This type of content works for people who knows you and trust you already, because these are top leadership content, and it's not necessarily a content that will go viral, right? Unless we are going to talk about some really controversial topics, and then yes, it's going to go viral.
Mhm.
But the thing is, a lot of time when we talk about more from an attention perspective of things, right? When you think of attention, you think of, I mean, you think of funny, you think of joke, you think of satire type content. Like it has to have a polarity to it to go viral, right? So kind of like, if you're trying to grow your audience in itself, you need to think of that in perspective of things. Like, while doing this is like having a podcast, doing a recorded interview session. I think those are very good way of finding very qualified clients, because once people start knowing you, they want to hear more of a particular episode. They go to a podcast, it brings them through a podcast, they start hearing you more, they like what you're putting out there, they start following more from your podcast perspective. You build a podcast audience. But in terms of social media in itself, you're not necessarily getting you're not necessarily putting out content that is geared towards generating attention, right? So how are you
Mhm.
generating like while this is going to generate attention, I'm sure it's not going to
Mhm.
generate the volume of attention that you want it to be. So kind of like, what does that look like in your space? So that's why, like previously I mentioned that, go look at what other people are doing in your industry and find
Mhm.
their top performing reels and just copy. Like, so definitely, like, if that requires you to speak in the camera, that's what it is. But it's not necessarily just this in itself. It's just understanding what's working in the market and just following that. Because I think we don't have to really reinvent the wheel so much in terms of like growing our audience at this point of time. But at the point, like, but the thing is, if you really want to grow fast, you just have to find what has really been working for people out there, and then just model from what they have to begin, what they've done to actually help exponentially grow their content. Because I've known creators, like I know a guy, one video on YouTube generated him 50,000 followers, and he started his YouTube channel from scratch. So, but all he did was to model somebody else's video, and he just made it better. That's all he did. So kind of like, that's kind of like the way of like growth and creating attention. And whether or not it requires speaking to the camera, I'm pretty sure that that's a very common thing now for everybody. So that's definitely something that you would have to do.
Yeah. Still getting used to it. And I still have, friends that have known
Def-
me for a long time that like, I can't believe you're even doing this. And I
yep,
said, I can't believe I'm doing this either. Uh, so, one of the things that, again, growing up before social media and then having it become one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing in our lives right now, the
yep.
word influencer, is that like a bad word, or is it like is there any kind of like stigma around that word? Because when I think of influencer, again, I think about the people on TikTok dancing,
Uh, I don't like to use influencer. I like to use thought leaders.
thought leaders.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I think like yes, I think there's a very like there's a connotation if you're trying to be an influencer versus thought leaders. Like I think like you can always influence, but the thing is influence can be good or bad, right? Like kind of
Mhm.
like and there's so many influencers out there now that are just promoting the wrong thing. Like
Mhm.
and especially on social media, right? Like with social media now, it kinds of blur the line in terms of like what is right versus what is wrong. Like it has. And which is why when you talk to me about influencers, I mean there's going to be a lot of names that comes up for me where, like for example, Logan Paul. To me, he's an influencer, but he's not a thought leader. He's just somebody creating lots of bad attention, and he's
Mhm.
influencing young people the wrong way or young kids the wrong way. And I don't think that should be the right thing to do. And then whereas when you call like you talk to me about thought leadership, like I mean Jordan Peterson, right? I mean Dan Mateo, right? Like these are good,
Mhm.
like great thought leaders that I want to follow because they're sharing life in a very positive way, and they're showing you like how you can actually achieve the best version of your life without without doing without going against your own morality or your own terms. Whereas like there's a lot of other influencers who are just doing the wrong things to just get right to get attention to be famous. So kind of that's my thought in terms of like what you asked. Influencer, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, and it does make me feel a bit better because I've never wanted to be famous. It was never in my yeah, I just never want to be famous, but at the same time, I want to be able to work with a lot of cool people because if you don't put it out there, then they can never find you and you can never work with them. So, um, yeah, very
Yeah, but I
interesting.
mean, ultimately, the thing is, thought leadership, I mean, is important because I feel that, I mean, you have something to give to the world. Everybody have something to give to the world, right? And if you don't spread your message out there, people are not going to listen, people are not going to understand, and that becomes a problem. Like, you're not helping somebody intentionally out there, but by putting out your message, you're going to be a beacon of light to somebody that you probably would never have the chance to reach out to. So that's why I say that like sharing your thought leadership is actually very important now, especially with so many mismatch of message out there from all these other people that are spreading the wrong message. So like definitely just go hard and go all in on it because I feel that there's so much more that you as a human and we as a human can definitely provide out to the people out there and there's somebody out there that can always be learning from us.
Yeah. But that's the problem though, because like when you kind of view your own experience as, well, this is just normal. And then like for me, I compare myself to Pace Morby or Dan Martell. And who am I to be able to try to give advice or help someone, right? That's
Yep,
the imposter syndrome is tough. Like how do you get over something like that?
yep. So, I mean, in terms of, I think, I mean, like, that is just through doing, right? Like, I think that's a lot of it is through just doing, and we practice what we say we will practice. I think that's a very underrated thing that a lot of people like, hey, like, I'm going to do this, and then we always procrastinate and not do it. But I feel that, like, to first build that confidence up is really to do what we say we are going to do so that we can stay true to ourselves, right? And then because if we start doing it, right, we see the results that come into our own life. I guess that gives us more confidence in terms of being more of a beacon of light to somebody and kind of eradicate this whole imposter syndrome.
Mm.
So the only reason why I'm saying that, for example, right, like your kids, like if I'll go back to kids, right? Like I mean I have a 3 and a 5 years old, right? When they were baby, they were young, they don't know how to walk. So do they have ever had the imposter syndrome of being a walker? No, they just try. They just keep trying to walk, right? So kind of like in
Yeah.
that perspective. Now like my son is learning how to write. Like like my 5 years learning how to write his alphabets and all, right? Like writing his
Mhm.
name and all. Like he doesn't have the imposter syndrome of being a writer or learning how to write in the first place. He's just
Mhm.
doing that and he gained the confidence from that in itself. So I think a big belief of mine is like we just got to do it and then we do it well enough that we overcome this whole taught of that we are an imposter. So it's just like not selling snake oil to somebody, but rather like we are doing it internally first and we actually gain the confidence. And while building this confidence, that imposter syndrome just become kind of like, I mean, you will have it at the end of the day, like it's not something that's going to disappear overnight. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it is something that is the more we do the things that we say we do, we are going to be eradicating it from our system in itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I remember. Do you know Dean Graziosi?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, he's accomplished so much, and he says he even deals with imposter syndrome. So it's interesting to see that. I guess it never goes away. It just the next level that you hit. I don't know. I guess it's something you always battle.
Yeah, it will be, and I mean the thing which is why, right? Be the proof, right? Like I think be the proof, right? Like for example, you yourself being a real estate investor, if you're not a real estate, like if you don't invest in real estate and you're selling real estate investing, man, that's going to be like a massive imposter syndrome that you have at the end of the day. So kind of like
Yeah.
I think that's very important in the bigger
Mhm.
scope of things in terms of like how you should be practicing and be the proof, right? Like you are doing through like this, and I would say disconnect the result from who you are as a person. So there's going to be great investment, there's going to be bad investment, right? But it's what you do when it's what is do when it's good or when it's bad that defines who you are as an investor. It's not necessarily because you failed in real estate investing. That means you are not a real estate investor. No, you're trying and in you're still figuring out what's going to work for you, right? But the thing is that figuring out doesn't mean that you're not. That figuring out is just that you are figuring out. It's not that it doesn't account to you being not a real estate investor at any point of time. So I feel that that's kind of like why when people start failing, they see that they disconnect what happened. I mean, they connect what happens to who they are, and I think that that's
Mhm.
not necessarily the case because a result is binary. It's just true or false, right? Like, is it good or
Mhm.
bad, right? And
Mhm.
ultimately, bad doesn't mean that it cannot be improved. So, what are you taking? What steps are you actively taking to then get to where you want to be? So, kind of like I think that's a mindset that people should be really having in terms of tying it into their identity as well.
Yeah, I mean, mindset's such a huge thing, and I'm glad that we kind of got into this topic now because, I mean, starting a business is not easy. It's it's one of the most difficult things that I've ever done. So when you started your own business, what were some mindset issues that you had to get over?
What mindset do I have to? Sorry,
What mindset problems or issues did you have to get over?
a lot. Uh, a lot. So many. I don't even know where to begin. Okay, it's a very interesting one because I mean, when I first started, right? I mean, like getting my first client, right? Like I mean, I worked for free just to get testimonials, portfolio, and now I'm charging like 4 5 figures for a project. So like can see the growth in terms of like how that has happened. But in terms of for that mindset to happen is knowing that I'm capable enough. I think that's kind of like one of the first mindset that I have to overcome because let's say I graduated with a university, I mean, with a degree in chemistry. I'm no understanding of marketing or business. I mean, you learn, but the thing is not necessarily like your mind is telling you that you don't have the necessary experience. And then when you work for somebody, it's easy because you are working for somebody, they hire you, they give you that vote of confidence that I'm hiring you, I'm paying you on a monthly basis, this is what you need
Mhm.
to do, and I believe that you're gonna do. So I feel like that when you're working for somebody, that's the mindset that you get the validation. Whereas when you start a business, that is not a validation that you're getting because you need to sell yourself. You need to tell somebody that I'm worth it, I'm good enough, and then that that signifies in terms of how much you're charging. And when they pay you the money, it just becomes like you just have to figure out and make it work, right? And then when things don't work, then you start doubting yourself in terms of like hey, like is this going to work for me? Is this not going to work for me? Like, am I even on the right track? And like you're just battling this inner demon every single day in terms of like the lack of, I would say the lack of confidence. Like the lack of confidence is definitely a very big mindset shift that even up to today I'm still battling depending on who I'm talking to. Like if there's something that I know that I can do really well, I'm like, yeah, I'm 100% confident. But then there's something that I'm like even like 50 60% unsure, like man, like you can see the confidence just dips like so drastically. It's just hilarious. But I think that's kind of like what one of the thing. The other thing as well is more the other thing about mindset that I think I had to overcome was more from a perspective of like not caring about what other people think. I think that's a very big one because I mean, like for example, now you're posting content on social media, right? Like
Yeah.
it is it is hard and it's awkward because we care about what other people think about us, and it is not something that we can eradicate overnight, but like it's just how do you change the mindset shift in terms of like doing things that you know you're impacting other people rather than caring about what other people think about you. So it's just having that mindset shift in terms of like, yeah, I shouldn't be caring so much, but rather because I know that somebody's going to benefit from it. And I should be, if all this is going to do is to help that one person out there, I should be doing it, right? So you have to think of like having the mindset of serving and not really bothered about what other people think about you. And I think one very good thing that I've learned through business is that everything is intertwined in life. So you have to be aligned in every aspect of your life. And it's not just business and family or business and my personal life. No, it's business and everything else together. Because the time you spend in business, the time you spend in family, that's the same 24 hours that you get in a day. And how you live your life or your standards in business is how you're going to live your life as a human person to your family, to your I mean, how you're going to treat your kids is how you're going to treat other people. It's a very to me it becomes more and more common to actually see that on a daily basis that everything is so aligned in life and it's not you cannot really segment one thing from another. Everything is so intertwined. So that kinds of putting me in my mindset that if I'm striving to be better, it's not striving to be better in just business. I'm striving to
Mhm.
be a better because I want to be a better human being all around.
Yeah, that was one of the surprising things. I went to this mastermind like about a little over a year ago, and when we did this thing called somatic breath work, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but you're
Yeah,
basically it's laying down on this ground and on the ground, and then you're just breathing a certain way, and then at some point things start popping into your head and things that you've held on to or have like kind of put away, and then you just have this like huge emotional release. And one of the
yeah.
things was like I'm not being as patient as I should be with my wife and kids. And I went to this mastermind for real estate and business, and then it comes back as uh, I come back as trying to be more patient and a better father and better husband. It's just weird how it all rolls into this journey. I thought I was just going out and buying rental properties to make some passive income and turn into
Oh,
this.
everything is intertwined. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
everything is so intertwined, right? And then like every decision that you make affect every other decision in your life, right? Like it's not just one or the other. It just becomes so yeah, it's just becomes so intertwined. I mean, like the more I feel like the more like for business owner, the more you are diving deeper into your business, the more you feel like man, like everything is a choice. Everything is so like if you're making this choice, what is it going to? I mean, what is it going to? How is it going to impact every single other facet of your life? Like you know that that's like the choice that you're making is going to impact every single thing that's going to happen in your life.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? So then it just becomes okay, well, if I do this, then this happens, and if I do this, and it's just a never-ending strategy session in the head.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Moses, I appreciate you coming on. How can people reach out to you and how can people work with you?
Yeah, so if people reach out to me, they can just find me on my Instagram, Moses Thien. So they can just drop me a message to say hi. I actually have a free course that shows people how to build their own growth system or how to get started in digital marketing. They can go to perfectgrowthsystem.com/amplify. So if they, I mean, if they go there, they can just opt in for a course. It's free. There's no charge. It's just showing people how they can actually create their own predictable growth system in their business, and that definitely would help them scale their business very predictably. I mean, apart from that, I mean, you can always just reach out to me on Instagram. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with anyone on digital marketing or any business growth consulting that you need. I'm more than happy to have that conversation with anyone.
Yeah, we'll definitely have those links in the description. I have both of them available. Moses, thank you again for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.